Special guest appearance?
I'm the special guest appearance.
Let's talk about our issue in Tallahassee we're about to be vetoed with monies that were appropriated.
How are you? That's good.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
I said, I don't know how that's going to sort out.
Mayor, do you mind doing your gavel?
Working at it, but.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The mayor has called the meeting to order. Councilmember Kaplan?
Here.
Councilmember De La Cruz?
Here.
Councilmember Gross?
Here.
Councilmember Holloway?
Here.
Councilmember Kelly?
Here.
Mayor Lindsay?
Here.
Vice Mayor London?
Here.
We do have a quorum, and the mayor, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Michael?
First item on the agenda, Madam Mayor, is brief comments by council.
Would anyone like to make a comment today?
I'd like to thank the Community Foundation for a lovely event on Saturday night, their annual aqua party. So I think most people in this room are probably there.
Absolutely. And not just for the event, but everything they do for our community and for the greater community in Miami-Dade County. Next item, Madam Clerk.
The next item is special presentations, and the first one is a presentation to the Danger family, renaming the Mashta Flats as the Danger Flats.
Anne and family, if you could please come up. And friends, if you want to get, of course you can talk, Anne. And if you can, friends, if you'd like to get a little closer. Thank you.
I'd just like to say on behalf of my family and the 4 children that are here, and my grandchildren, and my daughter, and my grandson, and my other son who couldn't be here, this is a great honor, and we thank you very much. Jim worked very hard on this project. He grew up on the flats, as did our children, and it was dear to his heart. He spent a lot of years and a lot of hours, and I would always say, why bother? It's a lot of aggravation, and you're getting nowhere. And he would always say, because it's the right thing to do. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you want to present the?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
I'm
yes,
sorry.
yes. You know, this is bittersweet, but, and we are not good in this village. It is not our custom to look for naming opportunities or promote that. But when it's someone that is so much a part of a fabric of this community and leaves such an incredible legacy, we thought it was absolutely befitting to do this for you all and in honor of Jim.
Well, it's also for future generations that can enjoy the flats also.
So absolutely. And I would like to read the resolution into the record and present you with a copy, a executed copy of the resolution. This is resolution number 2016-7, a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, renaming the Mashta Flats within the legal boundaries of the village as the Tainter Flats, providing for authorization and providing for an effective date. The resolution reads, whereas the Mashta Flats is located in part within the jurisdictional boundaries of the Village of Key Biscayne, and whereas Vice Mayor James Spencer Tainter III was instrumental in the establishment of a vessel exclusion zone for the Mashta Flats, which is intended not only to enhance the safety of boaters and swimmers, but also to protect seagrass beds that are a crucial habitat to many fish species, invertebrates, crustaceans, marine turtles, and manatees. And whereas, with great sadness, on January 5th, 2016, Vice Mayor Tainter passed away and was never able to witness the Mashta Flats Vessel Exclusion Zone, which he diligently and tirelessly worked to establish. And whereas in honor of his efforts and his legacy, the Village of Key Biscayne desires to rename the Mashta Flats within the legal boundaries of the village as Tainter Flats. And whereas the Village Council finds that this resolution is in the best interest and welfare of the residents of Key Biscayne, now wherefore be it resolved by the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, as follows. Section 1, recital adopted. Each above stated recital is hereby adopted, confirmed, and incorporated herein. Section 2, Tainter Flats. The Village Council hereby renames the Mashta Flats within the legal boundaries of the village as Tainter Flats. Section 3, the village manager is authorized to take any and all steps necessary to implement the intent and the purpose of this resolution. Section 4, effective date, this resolution shall be effective immediately upon adoption, and this was passed and adopted February 9th of 2016, and we would like to present to you as a council this resolution. I want to get closer into the picture. No, don't, Ann. Don't worry about us.
All right, 1, 2, 3.
And this doesn't relieve you from baking cookies and cake and bringing it to the meeting, you know that.
That doesn't mean my grandson can take his boat in there either.
Sure.
Penny?
My pleasure.
Thanks.
Yeah. Sign. Yeah. Next item, Madam Mayor, with your indulgence, is not included on the agenda, but I know you will be happy that we are including it, and it's a special presentation to Melissa White. Melissa?
Ms. White, if you could approach.
Very.
You know, we have a wonderful community of engaged residents, people who tirelessly do for others and make not only Key Biscayne, but greater Miami-Dade a better place to live. And you're our angel. We appreciate you every day. But you're also, Superintendent Carvalho wants to share you and acknowledged you. As we all know, we have for years, at the direction of Melissa, been working with Liberty City, with MCI, and with the school district to improve the experience of many children in the public school system. And you've taken on some initiatives and executed them beautifully. You were honored last week by the superintendent and the school board, unbeknownst to us, because we would have all been there. And so the manager and council thought it would be appropriate to recognize you now and to thank you for everything you do, not only for this community, but for Miami-Dade. And so last week, Melissa was recognized as an angel and part of the Miami-Dade Public School System Angel Patrol. And she was honored. She was one among 10 philanthropic individuals who were honored and dubbed the Angel Patrol for always stepping forward to take care of the district's needy students. And I'm going to read you what they said about Miss White, who is the director of the Key Biscayne Foundation. She has connected organizations to programs in Miami-Dade public schools. She's helped create a sister city initiative between Key Biscayne and Liberty City. to help fund projects so all students can have the same school experiences. Thank you. Thank you for everything you do. We're very proud of you.
Yay,
And this is what was presented to you. I'm sorry we were not there, but we're trying to recreate the moment. Thank you very much.
Proud mom. Next item, Madam Mayor, is agenda approvals, deferrals, additions, deletions, substitutions, withdrawals.
Counsel, Dr. Kelly.
I have two very brief ones. One is just a brief discussion on our plans for the temporary park at at Heather and Hampton. And the second is a brief update on the status of 530 Crandon by the manager.
Great. Mr. Manager, are you going to speak to the underground utility, the bearing of underground utilities
I can give a very short.
RFP?
Yes,
So it will be under your,
Yes, ma'am.
okay. So we will be adding an update on our RFP for an analysis of bearing power lines under the manager's item.
Are you, Madam Mayor, deferring item 8A to the next agenda? My brother's keepers?
I will be dropping it down to a discussion item for council
Okay,
to explain what that was, and then
okay. So that would be item 5.
yes.
Madam Mayor, the only other thing I was going to add this evening was the notification we received from the governor's office
Sure.
this afternoon. May I?
Please.
I didn't hear you.
This will be just very, very quickly, and I can do it now. So we were
Sure.
we were notified from our lobbyist and the law firm that the governor had produced something unprecedented, but he did a preemptive strike on vetoing 6 pages of projects. And wherein last week we were told that one of our projects, the outfall area over here by the school, was being forwarded to the governor for his signature for $525,000. That was one of the line items he vetoed earlier this afternoon. So we lost that opportunity for now. He has not been presented with a budget yet, but that did take place. We were notified that we lost the 525.
And actually, this is also a request for residents, individuals who may have some kind of
Yes, ma'am.
influence, ear to, and he can lend assistance to make sure that this project is funded because it has really serious consequences to our village. And Ed?
He actually hasn't vetoed anything yet. This is a preemptive veto, which is sort of unheard of, telling what he's thinking of vetoing, so everybody knows what he's going to do. So obviously now,
It is the right time to reach out
as
because
Myra
it
is
has
saying,
not been
now's the
vetoed.
time before he actually does veto it.
Residents, please feel free to call me or call the manager, call any council member, but call. Let's get this done. Thank you, Ed.
Preemptive veto.
Right.
Never been done before.
I guess it's kind of, he's already missing the crowds in Tallahassee. He wants to make sure people come and visit. So, keeping the session open a little longer. Okay, we can go forward with the.
All those in favor of the agenda changes?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the mayor is the approval of the minutes of the March 8, 2016 regular council meeting.
So moved. Second.
Any changes? Please
All
call
those
the
in
question.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is reports and recommendations, mayor and council members, rules and procedures for council. Councilmember Kaplan.
Picking up on this discussion from, was it 2 weeks ago or 2 meetings ago? I have nothing further to add other than the brief explanation I gave for the genesis of this work. I recall that it elicited some discussion, much of which I believe was favorable in response to this proposal. There was one element that I think engendered a comment about the use of telephonic participation, not for purposes of quorum, but for purposes of participation if quorum otherwise existed. I don't recall that there was another item that was singled out for discussion, but this is open for your consideration.
I still have a couple of things that I mentioned the last time, which I'm still not thrilled with, even though I am thrilled with the product as a whole. And I understand that some of these things already exist, but my tendency would be to remove them even if they do already exist. The first two are number 12 and 13, which relate to taking action on items that were not contained in the printed agenda. And I think the goal of these additions is to strengthen that pre-existing section in the charter which tends to work against taking votes on things that weren't already listed on the agenda. And, you know, in my experience, there are things that come up from time to time that wouldn't necessarily qualify as an emergency, but still could benefit from a vote. And we've done that. We've done that in violation of what you've shown us is already here in the charter, but we've done that from time to time. And I think that those things, even though they don't happen very frequently, have been good things when they happen. So I'm not a big fan of 12 and 13, and I would like to preserve the ability of the council to add things and vote on them even if they're not published in the agenda. Even if it's very limited powers to do so, I think there is a role for that. You know, the situation that comes to mind would be even, you know, in a meeting like this when we're not going to meet again for another month. You know, sometimes there's things that wouldn't be an emergency, yet, you know, just for instance, this temporary park at Hampton and Heather. I mean, we're going to have a discussion tonight about it, but we might even find the need to vote on a dollar amount or a recommendation on a dollar amount that we would like the manager to spend. And strictly reading this, we couldn't do that because I just added it to the agenda tonight. So I think I agree with the overall sentiment. I understand the fact that you shouldn't be hiding something from the public and throwing it on at the last second so that the public wasn't notified on it. But I just find this a little too black and white, too rigid for every situation. That's my objection.
My thought, just two thoughts, I guess. One is that in addition to the goal not just being surprise to the public, but also surprise to us.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, that's part of the embedded protection that was the predicate for this back whenever it was first adopted. My own view is we have never abused this this proposition by trying to lay surprises on each other. In fact, I think we're historically rather disciplined in not doing that. At the same time, I didn't edit the principle that exists in the ordinance now. I only refined the language. If you all wish to maybe expand the qualifier that we could take action not just in the case of an emergency, but if a majority of the council decided to do so, or majority plus one, or whatever you think is the right answer.
How about instead of an emergency, a need exists?
I don't have a problem with that.
I mean, I think if you put a need exists, I would
I don't have a problem with that. The important principle is that we don't, sandbag each other.
A need is always going to exist, otherwise we wouldn't be taking, a position on a particular ordinance. I happen to like to know that whatever we're going to be voting on is announced prior to the time that we're going to be voting on it. And an emergency issue, I can see that we can make an exception, but my own personal opinion is that we should leave it the way it is in terms of not, changing things unless they're announced so that the people can come, the people can call you, the people can talk to you about it, and we can make an informed decision. That's my own personal.
Mr. London and then
I
Mr.
would
Gross.
suggest that need, instead of need, in the case of time is of the essence, where basically something comes up and waiting 2 weeks might cause a problem. So if time is of the essence on a particular subject, if it's time sensitive, then I think we should be able to.
Okay,
That's, I can live with that as well. Gary?
Yeah, I was going to qualify this by saying that one person on the council could object to a vote coming up on a newly presented item, and it wouldn't come up. But if the council unanimously wants to discuss and then vote on something, it's hard for me to believe that everyone on this dais would have a bad judgment and on anything. So that kind of gives the right of anyone to say, I'm not ready for this, and I don't want to talk about it or vote on it now. But if everybody agrees that it's important enough to get it done, and it's not doing anything to prevent our constituents from understanding what's going on, we should be able to do it. I can't even imagine what it would be, but
Right.
something, we pass a rule that doesn't let us do something, and sure enough, it's going to come up. So,
What about
So we
both?
like time is of the essence or exigent circumstance?
What about
Or,
if both? In other words, if time is of the essence, or if all of us agree?
yes, perfect.
Is that for number 12 or number 11?
It applies to both of them.
I would just comment that you're not changing your charter. Your charter still exists. Your charter still has describes what is necessary for an emergency and what you can do and what you can't do. So these are your own rules of procedure. But just keep in mind, according to your charter, there's, it prescribes exactly what an emergency is, but that just deals with ordinances. And I don't think that Councilman Kaplan meant this to apply to
No,
everything.
no.
So the point is, you can't change your charter. Your charter does require certain notice as to ordinances. It also, even with emergencies, there's restricted as to what you can do for an ordinance. So just to keep in mind, these are internal.
This is a resolution, it's not changing the charter.
Right, although it does say ordinance.
But the charter, am I right in remembering that the charter does speak to the ability to adopt ordinances in an emergency?
Exactly.
And we're not touching that?
no.
Right.
This is more a
Yeah.
direction.
Right.
I see this more as a I don't know, I guess direction is the
Direction,
term.
manager,
It's,
yeah.
Time is the essence, you like that?
I like time of the essence. I'm not a big fan of requiring a total vote by the council. The only situation right now where you have to have a unanimous vote is on giving to a charity.
Do we want to give supermajority or?
I think if a majority of council members want to talk about it and time is of the essence or it's an emergency, I think that's sufficient reason myself. I mean, not to.
I'm not upset about it.
Okay.
I think the important thing here, remember that this is by way of guidance, and what's most important is that we manage ourselves well.
It's policy, that's the term, I'm sorry, policy was the term I was looking for.
All right, so to make it clear, an ordinance still has to be under an emergency.
It's
And-
governed by
and
the charter.
Everything else is under.
Governed by the charter.
So for clarification, it would be under 12, and it would say elaborating on section 11 above, except for time of the essence.
Except for an emergency found by majority roll call,
Okay,
and words to this effect, except for matters determined by the majority to require immediate action, time being of the essence. Okay? That's the
Can you
thought.
forward that to me?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll do it.
Let him do it.
I'll do it. And it applies to 12 and 13 in this, and it'll be the same language.
Thank you,
And
Councilmember.
Councilman, do you want to take out the word ordinance? Because ordinance is
By
to,
the charter.
yeah, it's right out of the charter.
Yes,
The ordinance, so
yes.
that should probably be out.
Yeah.
There's two
Yes.
others.
Go ahead.
One is 19, about participating telephonically. I'm troubled by the way this has been utilized in the last year or two. I think it creates issues where you don't know what degree of participation someone is having, and how well they're involved in the discussion that's taking place. And I'm not sure that they're as qualified to vote on an issue if they're telephonically present as if they were physically present. I also don't think that, that our ability to decide whether someone should participate or not has been applied consistently. I think, for me, I think participating telephonically should be under more extraordinary circumstances than what it's been used for the past year or two. That's my
In
impression.
reverse
Wait.
order,
Frank, Mr. London wanted to comment, and then you'll have the floor.
I respectfully disagree with you, Mike. We don't know if anybody sitting here is paying attention, concentrating, or, we have no idea. I mean, we're all individuals. We have to assume that someone participates telephonically. They have the interest in participating, and that's why they're on the telephone. Now, what you're saying is maybe they're sleeping, not listening, but why would they want to participate if they aren't going to pay attention? And again, they can sit here and not pay attention and still vote on everything. So I really think it's a common courtesy we should extend to each other, that if we can't make it and we do want to participate telephonically, we shouldn't automatically be able to, not by a vote of the majority of the council or anything else, but be able to participate. That's my opinion.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Frank?
I'm content with majority approval. I think in reverse order of your comments, I can't think of a time when anyone's requested the ability to participate telephonically that it's been denied, number one. And number two, I can think of one instance where that participation somewhat marred the proceedings because the technology was noisy and there was feedback, and it was an occasion that we all remember using Skype, I think. But apart from that, which actually disrupted the in-person experience in my memory. And I think that we have a responsibility to our orderly process to make sure that the participation is at least neutral, so that we're not adversely affected in our own discussion. But I agree with Ed. We're either, sometimes that happens. We're either attentive in-person telephonically or we're not. It's up to us to participate actively, all of us, and I think we do. The other point, if you're going to go to the trouble of calling in, it does manifest that you're interested in doing so. And I would leave that, take it at face value that they're paying attention, and not try to police that. The other element of this is, I see, if our goal is to encourage participation, and recognizing that we're all volunteers and we all work and we all have busy lives, and we cannot manage our schedules to be here and we want to participate, I'm inclined to let it happen. I see no harm and some good.
I have to tell you that I don't think it's a substitute that should be used liberally by individuals. We do have a commitment to this office we choose to run. We have only 3 absences that are allowed by the charter. And but I think there are situations where things are out of your control and one wants to participate. So I do have a recollection of having more issues with telephonic and electronic participation than just one. So this is a good discussion to have so that we're all on the same page.
the will of the council is the will of the council. I understand that. The way this is written, I could attend all of the meetings from home.
And that's
I
not
could,
the
I
intent.
could vote on every issue from home. And there is no prescription that would prevent me from doing so as long as the majority of the council allowed me to.
I mean, that
You-
hasn't.
you really think that would happen?
That hasn't
I
been
mean,
happened, you know.
I mean, I
mean,
think
this comes up so
the
few times.
safeguard in here is built in, because if someone is truly abusing this, the council, I would think, is smart enough to say, you can't do this anymore, we're not going to.
We'll change it, right,
I will tell you that, Mike, I have never been on a board from our National Executive Committee, which is the 15th largest firm in the country, on down to the smallest committee I've ever been on, that totally eliminated the ability of members to vote, because it can be a real problem. It can be a very big problem. It can be a complete change in the way a vote would come out. It could be preventing important input from someone that's very educated and very up on the item that's being discussed. And, I mean, like anything else, I would hope that we'd be smart enough to prevent an abuse, but things happen that eliminate somebody's ability to be here when there's an important vote coming up. And I don't think we should eliminate the ability for somebody to do that. I think it hurts us more than helps us.
I agree. Dr. Kelly, do you think of the language is massaged to something where you think it's a little,
No,
Title
you know what, I guess, because I've seen instances through the years where I felt like the discussion would have been better and the vote would have been more educated had the person been here. But, you know, like I said, the will of the council is the will of the council. If the majority of people feel that someone should be able to call in, that I'm fine with it. I just wanted to raise my concern.
You could add something like, when, despite using best efforts or something, council people were unable to attend. Because when you're saying unable, it is very broad. And of course, you can protect it because you have to vote for it. But the question is, once you start voting for it, where does it go? You might want to put some qualifier.
You know, the concept of precatory language, the notion being that we're supposed to be here. And I am happy
Yeah.
and I agree with this strongly, we are supposed to be here, butts and seats. So if you want, I will try to elaborate on that point and try to speak a little.
I think that's important. I think it is preferable to have people here. And I think we need to convey that in some more overtly, I guess.
I'll do so.
Madam
Just want to
Clerk,
say
did you want to
something.
mention
Right.
something? And then,
Pursuant to the charter, a council person cannot miss 3 consecutive regular council meetings.
But you could miss.
The zoning
You
ones.
could miss 20 every other meeting.
correct.
So you literally could come every other meeting and do the other 20 from home.
But regular.
Has this been a problem?
Mr. London? No.
We only
Mr. London,
had-
yes, it
That was
actually
gonna be my
someone did
next-
resign.
We only had
Yes,
once.
well-
I've been on the council
A long time
that-
ago, a long time
Three and a
ago.
half years, and how many telephonic people have attended? I mean, has it been a half dozen in 3.5 years? Maybe?
there was
We're
a
making
pro-
a big to-do about nothing?
There was an issue probably 15 years ago with someone who did not attend meetings and eventually resigned.
Fine.
So that's,
Fine, so they
Sorry.
resigned. You know, they're not
All I'm
here
saying
in a
is that-
row.
well, yeah, but there was a gap of 8 months where there was no active participation, so that was the loss of the committee.
I don't think we
So I
need best
think-
efforts or anything else. I mean, if somebody becomes abusive, just called peer pressure.
We could always look at it again if it
That's what
becomes.
I'm saying.
Okay. Next comment.
I-
Yes.
One more. And this is my last one. And this one is only, we discussed it the last time, number 26, about semi-private and sidebar conversations. That's already part of the
Sunshine.
Florida statutes as far as sunshine law. I don't think we need to reiterate it here from a practical standpoint. I've seen these things occur, and while they may be illegal, I think it does grease the wheels of the council. I wouldn't add this to our policy. I don't see any advantage of adding it to our policies.
I thought to suggest this. This is brand new. This is one of the things that I've introduced. And I did so because I think that we have too conspicuously, for too long, deviated from a proper standard, too conspicuously. And I think in practical life, yes, these things occur, but we should, if this is guidance, and we are seeking to remind ourselves by having something memorialized what proper comportment includes, this is an element that I think we could all bear being reminded of from time to time. That's my view.
Obviously, I'm against it. Since you're referring to me.
I wasn't even looking at
Yes,
you.
you were staring.
Wasn't I?
You were staring, Frank.
I mean, you can be against this
Guilty as charged.
admonition and obviously still believe in the sunshine law requirements. And so I don't see what this adds.
You think it's redundant?
I think on a legal standpoint, it's redundant, and I think from a practical standpoint, I think that
Trying to
there-
persecute me.
Well, no, I think there are things that councils do to accommodate the law and still function regularly. And I think sometimes these types of activities, while technically illegal, help the council function. It's been my impression. So I don't see the point of memorializing something, you know.
This isn't a legal document. It's guidance. It's our policies. It's our memorialization of self-policing and rules of order. And I just, I think I disagree with you on that, and we'll see what everybody thinks. I would include it because I think it reflects what our proper deportment is supposed to be.
I don't think it's necessary.
Councilmember Kaplan, would you like to bring this back for vote with the tweaks?
I will certainly do that.
Thank
I have
you.
some editing that I will suggest, and on this point, you know, look, my inclination is to leave it in. If you want to have a caucus now to determine whether a sufficient number of us want to pull it out, then I'll pull it out. You know, we should come to an agreement on that.
I'm for pulling it out.
You and Mike, and
I would pull it out.
you and Mike and Gary.
I would keep it in.
I think it's the law. I think that's what we're supposed to do.
I think it's helpful having it.
Okay?
What happened?
My edits will not include the deletion of this item.
Okay.
So don't talk to me anymore.
Until we vote on this, I can't.
There you go.
And you seem to be the common denominator.
There you go.
All right, thanks for this, and I'll bring this back.
Thank you, Councilmember Kaplan. The next item on the agenda, Madam Mayor, is appointment of representative from Key Biscayne to the City of Miami, Virginia Key Advisory Board. Your item.
Thank you. Yes, we discussed this last week, and I am ready to make an appointment for your approval or ratification, and the appointment for the representative of Key Biscayne for the City of Miami, Virginia Key Advisory Board. I propose is Michael Davey.
Do we have consensus of council?
I've heard of them.
Thank you. Next item is temporary park at 401 Hampton. Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you. At the workshop, there was a lot of enthusiasm both for the long-range planning of that park and also just a lot of enthusiasm for the park in general. But there was also enthusiasm for doing something temporarily as soon as possible. From what I've learned since we met, there has been efforts to create an ad hoc committee with Maite Thornton taking the lead and some of the neighbors. And I'm not sure how much we really need to get involved in this. It's really the manager's domain, but my thought was perhaps we could encourage the manager to work with those neighbors as they come up with plans to try and do something temporary, if it's sodding, grading, some planning. I would leave it up to him and them, but I think if we put our blessing on it, that would be helpful. With having said that, I do think it's important to remind this ad hoc committee that ultimately the manager runs the village and the council sets policy. And even committees that are created by the council only act in an advisory committee, and that this ad hoc committee has not been elected by anyone, has not been created by the council, so they really shouldn't overstep their belief in their own power, to put it bluntly. Ultimately, it's the manager's decision, and but at the same time, we want to make them happy. We want to do something that the neighbors want, and having their involvement is very important.
Agreed.
Let's get it done. Let's, temporary improvements, let's get the ball rolling.
Is that enough direction, Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir, and if I may, just for 30 seconds, right after the workshop, staff and I have visited the site twice. If you think of it as a box, and it pretty much is, if you go about 15 feet in all the way around, we've got a very, very good stead of grass and a very good stand. It's working. But in the middle of that property is what appears to be an asphalt driveway from the previous property. So what I've directed staff to do, so that I could come back with more conceptual documents for you on our next meeting of the 12th of April, and now working with the ad hoc committee that I've just learned about. We've already met with staff out there to remove that asphalt area, come down a little bit so that I can put a proper surface below it, not like we did out here at the 530 property. And then as part of the project, lay on top of that a sod field that can be used within 3 to 4 weeks for any purpose that the council so desires. As I said the night of the workshop, I can have this back to you by the 12th of April, and I'm looking at a Saturday on April 30th, the last Saturday of the month, for our neighbors, helping neighbors to get this completed. But I'm sure that working with the folks that are most interested, especially the neighbors, we can come up with something.
And I'm just reminded of something Steve Simon told me yesterday, which was that apparently there's fencing that is not exactly at the property line.
The Building, Zoning, and Planning Director and I were out there and took a look at, I needed to check the survey, but Dr. Simon had made it known to me that during that survey process that there may be a bit of an encroachment problem that we have to deal with.
Right.
But I'm sure we can deal with that very, very quickly.
I mean, that may be something that you want to take care of at the same time.
Yes, sir.
Just to establish our boundaries.
There is orange paint out there. I mean, we did go so far as to take a look so that I could get a technical, just an idea of what costing would be, because we're talking about purchasing a couple of pallets of sod, and we're talking about purchasing about 1 to 2 cubic yards of sand to put down beforehand, and some plants, and like I say, it's a starting point. But I can have it up and running according to our folks. We can have the thing sodded by the first weekend in May, and we can be using that field for whatever purpose as early as the 1st of June.
Great.
Looking
Thank you.
forward to seeing the manager take the ball and run with this one.
Great.
Next item, update on 530 Crandon. Your item, Councilmember Kelly.
Yeah, as much as I've been interested in this project, I'm a little unclear on where we stand in the process of creating that park. I know that we reviewed design teams. We gave them our preferences, but I don't really know where we have gone from that point. So,
If I may, back on the 7th of July, 2015, there was a presentation made to council before our summer break. There were 3 concept sketches presented to council. We discussed at that time an alternative which included some 96 underground parking spaces and a parking garage. At that time, the council set, according to the tape that we viewed, the council set the following priorities: an emphasis on a performance space for small concerts and shows on that piece of property, passive space and walkways, and to explore the possibility of partially closing off McIntyre Street and to tie the park into the Sarah Morris artwork. That was at that meeting. After we reconvened after the summer break, we presented 2 more sketches. Both of the sketches expanded the park over the north lane of the McIntyre Street. The cost estimate for the park without the underground parking was anywhere from $1.3 to $1.4 million. And the difference on how the park was integrated into North Lane was briefly discussed. Council requested a parking study to determine the parking space shortage in the Civic Center before moving any further forward. We met again on October 17th. Joe Cordino presented his parking study to the village, and he found that in the Civic Center, there was a shortage of between 105 and 124 parking spaces. The report concluded that the problem is worse than it appears. At that time, and the last time we've had any conversation about this property, the last thing that was discussed was we would not do anything moving forward until we completed the design and the process for the North End Dog Park. So we have ideas. My recommendation would be that we bring this back, some of the ideas, and bring back to you at the meeting of April 12th so that we can get current. But we have really done very little, if anything at all, since about the middle of October.
Myra?
And if I can add to that, I think part of our thought process also was that was the staging area for the expansion of the community center, so that was impeded. But Mr. London?
Weren't we also concerned, I should say, considering where we're going to do the parking, under there?
Right.
Or getting the police parking lot for parking? And I think that was another thing that was up in the air until we made that decision. We know we're going to do with both properties.
Correct.
So I think that was another reason we were holding back.
We had some very expensive cost per space for an underground parking garage at that property.
I think there was at least 4-3 consensus to go with an above-ground parking garage at that time, and we directed the manager to begin negotiations that would be completed by the first of the year to obtain the police parking lot, which the last update I got was that we were close, but we were waiting for appraisals. So that's a separate issue that I didn't put on the agenda tonight, but I do think that that's an important
Do we have the appraisals?
component of what delayed the 530 project. However, I think we're far enough along down the parking lot aspect that we can proceed with planning 530. We approved the dog park at the last meeting. We're moving forward on the temporary improvement of Heather and Hampton. So I'd like to see us as a council really focus on getting 530 done.
Put it on the April agenda, first agenda.
What's the status of the appraisals?
I have not received the appraisals back yet. I will, to add to something, so, council member, we have been working on the RFP for the parking garage. As a matter of fact, it sits on my desk for final review, and it will, so we were dealing, I guess in tandem, was acquiring the piece of property, but not letting that hold us up on the design and bringing forth that. So that is on the April 12th meeting.
Is that a design build, or we're going to hire an engineer and architect?
That will be a decision of the council.
We're seeing an RFP. I mean, is it an RFP for design build?
Yes.
Or an RFP for professionals to design it and then have contractors build it?
Design build.
Design build, thank you.
The only news since the last time we discussed the appraisals is the county selected an appraisal and informed us as to who the appraiser was. We've got our appraisal.
We've been working with, to answer the questions of the county, Jed's been the point on this, but we've had a couple of conversations with the county for the needs that they have, and the answers are consistent with what we're doing at our end.
So with the council's permission, we can add this to the agenda on April 12th?
Absolutely, let's get the ball rolling.
Appraisal, we should follow up on.
Yep,
Well, I'm talking now about the 530 planning.
Okay.
you've got
By
my
30,
Maya
we have it
report.
for-
Yeah, and he already said that the RFP is already on the agenda for parking for the April 12th.
Mr. Dela Cruz?
for him.
We're here.
Not really quite sure what you mean regarding the appraisal. I mean, the appraisal shouldn't take more than 3 weeks, once they get started on it. So if we have from what I understand, we're getting one appraisal done on our end. They're doing their appraisal. So let's get ours done and let's get ours finished, and then we can tell them, hey, ours is done, it's finished. Let's move this item forward so we can get this purchase done as quickly as possible.
It's probably been about 5 weeks, something like that.
Mr. Dela Cruz, do you agree to have this item put on the next agenda because it's not currently a discussion item, but
Yes.
it is obviously a priority for all of us?
Yes.
Okay.
So at the next meeting, we're going to discuss both the parking garage and
And 5:30.
Right.
Next item of the mayor is Brothers Keeper Community Challenge, your item.
Yes, I just wanted to let you all know that I went to a My Brother's Keeper initiative. It's an event that was organized by Mayor Jimenez, the mayor of Miami-Dade County, and Congresswoman Wilson. The idea is to have all the municipalities in Miami-Dade County commit to My Brother's Keeper initiative. It is an initiative that was started by the White House to give support to underprivileged communities, and specifically to boys who do not have currently hope, exposure to different settings, and the support of community mentoring and programming. This is actually something that we are already doing, that this has been community-driven by our residents, by our chief of police, by the Key Biscayne Community Foundation, and by this council through our different initiatives with MCI, working together with Liberty City and adopting them as our sister city, and so many of the other programming that we do. So I would ask this council to support a resolution committing to My Brother's Keeper to the initiative for countywide involvement and with this priority. And also we have Theodora Long here from the Biscayne Nature Center. She's the director of the Biscayne Nature Center. She works in conjunction with the school board. Not only would I urge you all to endorse and support this initiative, but also pass a resolution. And we have Ms. Long here because she already has a project to really kick off this initiative and show that municipalities really care about the greater Miami-Dade County and the impacts that we, positive impacts that we can have to our community. So if you indulge me, Ms. Long.
I'll just keep you 2 minutes. I attended the same summit that Mayor Lindsay attended, and I was really moved by the boys who were there in their shirts and ties and standing tall and proud, and listening to Federica Wilson speak about the dangers that these children live in and day out. And then our superintendent of schools spoke, and how actually both of them spoke that they cannot go to another child's funeral about being, the crime that happens in their neighborhoods. I was so touched, and I saw Myra from a distance there, and when I got back to my office, I immediately sent her an email and said, the Nature Center and the Village of Key Biscayne has to do something to help these boys, as perhaps a reward for doing good in school or something. I didn't actually know what we could possibly do, but the Nature Center has so many underprivileged children come to the Nature Center on a daily basis where they live less than 5 miles from Key Biscayne, and they do not know that the ocean is 5 miles from their home. And all of us who are privileged enough to travel and enjoy our ocean front, you have no idea. So I was really touched by spending 3 hours listening to someone from the White House speak, Frederica Wilson, and the superintendent. So Myra and I decided, what could we do? I'm offering that the Nature Center can offer a day at the beach We have a lovely facility in Cranon Park. We can do, environmental education for them. They could do kayaking and paddle boarding, and perhaps the village could partner with me and provide the barbecue lunch or the sandwiches. So we feed them, we educate them, and they have a little bit of, wow, look at what the ocean has to offer you. So I just came to share my few thoughts. It wouldn't be very much money. We're talking about $1,500. I'm thinking about doing groups of 80 boys, maybe 4 times a year. And my input would be probably a $1,500 cost, and maybe the village, to feed and water them and give them snacks, another $1,500. So we're not talking about a lot of money, and I think we could really
But it's the
put
commitment and
Key
the taking the
Biscayne on the
initiative.
map and be one of the first communities to say we want to help. So that's.
Dr. Kelly?
Just, I would agree wholeheartedly. I think it's a fantastic thing. In my experience coaching tackle football, every single club that we played against who was from the inner city, their coaches would tell me they loved bringing their boys over here because these kids, the second they crossed that causeway, their eyes would be wide open. They'd never seen anything like it. They thought this was the most beautiful place in the whole world, and it's just amazing to us to think about people who live so close have no idea.
No.
I mean, it's like going to the Emerald City to them,
Right.
So anything we can do to help that process, I think, is a great thing.
Right, and the Nature Center would like to, partner with the village.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for your great suggestion. Theo?
I think it's a wonderful idea. But I can't help but wonder the role that the village plays with the community foundation and why this is different.
This is different because it is completely municipally driven. It is something that we are doing as a county in conjunction with our congresswoman. And it extends the programming, what we do through the foundation, or what is their programming, their policies. We work together with and support some of the programming, but it's driven by their board. This is something that we are taking our own initiative. We are making that commitment to our community directly. And it's also a different group of children. It is
Right, but from a
boys,
policy-
it's the 5,000 role model program.
So what we do in Liberty City goes through the community foundation, right? We actively consider them a sister city and participate in that. And I mean, if that's working, I don't understand the distinction
Well,
that you need to make this somehow independent.
Well, the resolution is something completely independent of what we're doing with the Community Foundation. The resolution is a commitment to this program as a community. It is also, but it also formalizes that to a certain extent, we did not need Congresswoman or the White House or the Congresswoman or the Mayor of Miami-Dade to tell us to do it. We are currently doing it. To a certain extent, we are being the role model that the rest of, the county should be. So we're formalizing, we're documenting, we're doing this already, and we're fully committed. So that's the resolution component of it. But then also to kick off that renewed commitment, we are casting the net wider and working with a partner agency to enhance that and have a broader impact. And Mr. Kaplan, you wanted to add to that.
I think this is a completely laudable proposition that we should rush to fulfill at the earliest possible moment and as generously as we can. Anything that ties us more and more often to the Nature Center is by itself a great thing. We've been looking for ways to partner with the Nature Center over the years, too fruitlessly, in my opinion, because there's many things we ought to be doing together. This is countywide, and I think, you know, my reaction to this was, you know, the old proposition that you judge people or places by how well they treat the least well-off among them. Here's our chance. So we ought to sign up, sign on. And if you read the resolution, makes this a countywide, all-municipal
Correct.
initiative. I don't think we want to be the outlier among 26 jurisdictions in Miami-Dade County. So I would say we do.
go even further and say we ought to be there volunteering on those days. Our community should be there to help out.
Yes.
I'm all for the thing, I'm all for helping out, I'm all for volunteering, but to me, this comes under charity, and I don't think we as a council have the right to decide what charities, we didn't get elected to do that, that's what individuals do, to decide who to give what to. So I'm for everything, but I'm not for giving money if it's a charitable type of thing. Any direct benefit to the village of Key Biscayne. If there was a direct benefit, then I'd say fine. But it's an indirect thing. It's a great thing. I'll personally support it, personally pay for it, but I will not vote to spend
I accept.
village money.
Thank you for the check.
Okay, I'll pay for it. No problem. I'll be happy to give them the money.
Mr. Cruz.
I wasn't going to say anything about this, but I have to really disagree with that, Ed. This is not making a charitable contribution. This is our village becoming a part of a countywide initiative and saying we too as a village support everything that this stands for and want to take an active role in it. I think the cost of putting on these events is minor compared to the involvement that the village will have and the commitment that we make to be an active partner in this initiative. So I understand that it's not the council's job to give away our voters' money in a charitable way, but I don't think that that's what this is all about. It's more like being a part of it and contributing time and effort as well.
I'm all for contributing time and effort. I'm all for being involved. I'm all for pushing it, sponsoring it, get community involvement with it. I'm for everything. I just don't believe the financial part of it. That's all.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, also, your resolution doesn't talk about money.
No, in the resolution, this was,
Right, so this discussion about money is
Needs
just
to
a
come back.
discussion, right?
and it's just a
I have
discussion,
no
yes.
problem.
Yes. It's, and this is, the resolution was a draft resolution that was proposed. We will be tailoring one for, this was just a discussion item. Yes.
Yes, that's what I was asking Mrs. Sirota when I went back there. If we want to bring this back and talk about money, I think we all have to unanimously agree to give any money, so.
Well, if
The
it,
charter addresses that.
Right.
The charter, section 7.05, grants and charitable contributions requires that any grants or contributions be approved by 7 council members.
7.
okay.
I'm going to go on
yes.
record right now that I don't view this as charity at all. And when this comes back for discussion, I will argue against it being considered as a charitable contribution. We do things like this all the time for lots of good purposes, and not all of them are directly targeted in some laser fashion to some particular local constituency. So that'll be a discussion that we'll have when it comes time to decide what to do about money.
Can we
Mr.
ask our
Dela Cruz.
council to help us with that? I think we all want to help, and we want, and if we can find that it's not charitable, I think, we're all in favor. I don't know about Ed, but.
I have to tell you, I did not see it as a charitable contribution. It's not the way I processed it, so if we could get some guidance, that would be much
Okay, great.
appreciated.
I think we'll have that for the April 12th agenda.
It's coming back for the April, yes.
Right. Next item is the village manager's report, update on RFP for feasibility study for underground utility.
I think it was, I don't even know how long ago it was, but we put out the RFQ for the feasibility study for the underground power lines. The closing time and date was yesterday at 2 p.m. To the Demand Star system, there were 24 views of the RFQ. And at the time that the doors closed at 2 p.m. yesterday, not one company had put forth a bid or for qualification. So I've directed staff, they've begun working on it today. We're making contact with the 24 that were on the demand star so that I can come back at the meeting of the 12th and explain what may have happened and have a recommendation for you to move forward. Right now, we're about 3 weeks in an abeyance period until I can find out what happened and I can recommend.
Mr. Manager, I have to tell you, I'm frustrated because we're not reinventing the wheel. So we need to go back. Well, right, we need to go back and figure out the why, and this needs to go forward. And it shouldn't, it should not have been that difficult, and we should have gotten bids. So there's a kink in the process we need to figure out. We need to get it going. So, yes, Ed.
Can we go back? I made a suggestion before we did this, and can we do parallel? We're waiting to get people involved, but I suggested before that we contact, email, however you want to do it, all the licensed underground utility contractors in the state of Florida who have done the stuff over and over again to find out if they're interested, if they're involved, and get a dialogue going with these people and find out maybe there is a thing of design build, or maybe they will give you some information to get the proper consultants who will bid on this thing.
Ed, I think you and I were in agreement with that, and we as a council chose to.
Steve spoke against that.
And I think we're back to square one. I support you.
And we'll move forward.
Dr. Kelly.
I get the sense from the response to our dog park RFPs and our response to this RFQ that we may be making our requirements so stringent that
Nobody wants to do it.
nobody's
Nobody.
wanting to do it. So I don't know, I know we reviewed with the dog park issue, and we're going to review with the RFQ issue now, but we need to kind of get a handle on what it is in our process that we're not getting the number of bids that we'd like to get.
Absolutely.
Can we ask the manager to please work on this and come back to us with a better plan?
I think he suggested he was going to do that for the next meeting, so please, I think that's understood, absolutely.
Let me put
Kelly
another
Cruz.
benchmark out there. Friday at 2 p.m., we'll have the closing for the RFQ for the professional services. So again, if I see the same kind of thing happening, I won't wait to come back. We'll begin to look into that, and I'll have enough issues under my belt where I'll have a pretty strong recommendation when we come back. I'm not suggesting to you that we're not going to get, I'm just saying that 2 p.m. Friday is another benchmark for another RFQ that we have out there. And this one's pretty significant because this is for the 5 services, the 5 disciplines that this community needs very, very much so we can move forward.
And that's a good point, but I think there's a distinction between professional services and capital projects and infrastructure, so it may be that it's still not, it's apples and oranges.
I just meant to make sure the council was aware that I've authorized no new projects at this point in time because of some of the vendor issues that we currently have. I'm not out there seeking their input yet until we get this back on Friday.
Mr. London?
Or can we proceed parallel to go to underground utility contractors? Won't cost us anything to find out who's interested, who wants to be involved, or if they don't have them, they basically suggest other consultants, or they'll come back and give us proposals. It doesn't cost us anything, and we can do it at the same time.
Right, you can directly solicit firms. There's nothing wrong with doing that, especially under these circumstances.
Where we got no bid.
Yeah.
So
Why not?
It's up. I was voted down before when I suggested.
I was too, Ed.
So I'm just bringing it up again, that's all. I mean, does anybody want to move forward with that parallel to what we're doing?
I think we should.
Excuse me. I want to move forward. So I think we should ask our manager, I think he sees, our impetus here, and that we want to move this issue forward as quickly as possible. Let's get him to come back to us and tell us what he suggests we do in order to get this done. And why can't he, on his own, contact whoever he needs to contact? Yeah,
I'm saying make it simple. They're all licensed by the state, so just get the list.
Yeah,
and you send the list to everybody.
Something
That's all,
that maybe he should be doing on his own. And
Well, I'm not going to do it. I'm just making a suggestion.
And I certainly can't be involved in 2 processes at the same time. This was an RFQ process that went out. It was dated.
Correct.
So now that this has been done, we can move to the next level.
That's what I'm saying.
You were
That's-
given very clear direction to
Without
take it a
question.
different way.
No,
I
no,
think
I'm not
now we're
saying you shouldn't. I'm saying
reconsidering
now.
other options.
All right. take the lead.
Sounds good.
Just one point of housekeeping. I believe we all got an email today about the dog park bid, and that there is a petition to try to stop and stop our resolution, so, or excuse me, our ordinance, to repeal our ordinance. I don't think this is ripe for discussion, but if you could please, out of courtesy to all of the interested residents in our community, put this as a discussion item for the next meeting, which will be in April.
Like referendum on dog park?
Yep.
Okay.
And with that,
That concludes this evening's agenda.
Motion,
There's one more. There's the governor's notice, or did we discuss that as fully as we're going to?
At the beginning of the meeting.
you want,
beginning of
thank
the
you.
meeting.
Good.
motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Meeting's adjourned.
Too early.
What are you going to do now, Ed?
Available now?
You s-